In August of 2022, Robert Cosby Jr. and his girlfriend Alexiana Smakoff quietly walked into a Utah courthouse and started what they believed would be their forever chapter together. He was 20. She was 18. No family present. No cameras rolling. Just two young people in love. Within 3 years, that love story collapsed into restraining orders, smashed windows, felony assault charges, and a 12-year-old boy calling his parents in a panic because he was terrified of the man his sister married. And then on February 23, 2026, Robert Cosby Jr. was found unresponsive inside his mother's home. He was 23 years old, the only son of a wealthy and powerful reality television family, and the sole heir to a church empire worth millions. And now he was gone. Was this simply another tragic overdose? Or could someone have wanted Robert Cosby Jr. dead? And if so, who stood to gain the most from his silence? The death of Robert Cosby Jr. has taken the world by utter shock. And one of the biggest reasons this story has grabbed so many people is because of his mother. I'm talking about Mary Cosby, the real housewife of Salt Lake City. She's been on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City since the very first season, and she's become one of the most talked about women in the entire franchise. She got a standing ovation at BravoCon. Rihanna personally reached out to her family twice. Andy Cohen, the man who basically runs all of Bravo, has called moments on her show some of the best in Real Housewives history. That's the kind of platform we're talking about here. So when news broke that her only son had been found dead inside her home from a suspected overdose, this wasn't just another headline. This hit different, because millions of people had watched Mary fight for this kid on camera. They watched her cry for him. They watched her beg him to get clean. And now he's gone. But here's the thing, and this is where the story gets complicated. Being the mother of a celebrity doesn't protect your child from the real world. If anything, it puts a bigger target on their back. And Robert Cosby Jr. had a target on his back from the day he was born. See, Robert didn't just grow up with a famous mom. He grew up inside a church empire. His father, Robert Cosby Sr., is the bishop of Faith Temple Pentecostal Church in Salt Lake City, a church that's been in the family since 1968 when Mary's grandmother founded it. And if you're thinking, wait, his father is a bishop and his mother's a real housewife? Yeah, it gets wilder than that. Before Robert Sr. was Mary's husband, he was married to Mary's grandmother for 22 years. When the grandmother passed away in 1997, Mary says it was the dying woman's wish for Mary to marry her step-grandfather and inherit the whole operation. The churches, the properties across 5 states, the daycares, the restaurants, everything. Mary divorced her first husband, married her step-grandfather 19 days later at the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago, and the rest is Bravo history. Robert Jr. was born into all of that around 2002, the only child, the sole heir. He grew up in a mansion in the hills above Salt Lake City, sheltered, loved hard, and kept close. Mary called herself a helicopter mom with zero apologies. She took him to Dubai for his birthday, moved the whole family to New York for 8 years so he could experience life outside Utah. This woman did everything for her son. And then he met Alexiana.
Why am I hearing rumors that you're married?
I mean, kinda, yeah. Like I went to the courthouse.
Lord have mercy.
Alexiana Arian Smakoff. She was 18, he was 20, and they quietly walked into a Utah courthouse in August of 2022 and got married without telling a single member of either family. Both of them lived under Mary's roof, and Mary had no idea her son was a married man until the cameras caught it. That moment you just saw? That was Mary finding out her only child got married behind her back. She was devastated. We are just scratching the surface here, and this story takes turns you will not see coming. If you're already hooked, subscribe and hit that bell right now. Drop a comment and tell me what you think happened. Let's keep going. Now I need you to understand something. In the months before Robert Cosby Jr. died, he was not just struggling quietly behind closed doors. He was at the center of a storm involving multiple people who had real, documented, court-verified reasons to want this man permanently out of their lives. Let me walk you through it. First, there's Alexiana's family, specifically her father. In September of 2025, Robert allegedly showed up at the Smakoff family home and tried to force his way inside through a dog door. When that didn't work, he got into a physical confrontation on their front lawn and refused to cooperate when police arrived. He was charged with criminal trespassing, assault, failure to stop at the command of law enforcement, and 3 counts of violating a court order. But here's where it gets really dark. Robert came back. In November, even though there was an active protective order against him, he returned to the same house. And this time, it was Alexiana's 12-year-old little brother who spotted him outside and heard loud banging. That child was so frightened that he immediately called his parents. When Alexiana's father checked the security cameras, he could see Robert kicking the Mercedes-Benz in the driveway. Police showed up and Robert fought them. According to the court affidavit, he pulled away, kicked at officers, and bit one of them hard enough that the officer yelled out in pain. It got so out of control that Alexiana's father had to physically help the police wrestle Robert to the ground. Think about that for a second. A father helping cops pin down his daughter's husband in his own front yard while his 12-year-old son watches from inside the house. There was a shattered window, damaged siding on the house, and a rock that had been thrown through the car windshield. Body camera footage reportedly caught Robert admitting on tape that he knew about the protective order and chose to violate it anyway. Now the second name I need to bring up is Alexiana herself. While Robert was sitting in a cell in November 2025, she filed a police report describing something that happened back in May of 2024 that she had been too afraid to report at the time. She told investigators that after she flushed Robert's drugs down the toilet, he attacked her, hitting her repeatedly in the face and head, kicking her in the stomach, and grabbing her by the throat. Photos submitted to police reportedly showed both eyes swollen, a lump under her eyebrow, and red marks across her neck. She filed for divorce on November 24, 2025. She got a permanent no-contact order. And here's a detail that raises a lot of eyebrows. Prosecutors waited until the literal day after Robert was released from jail, February 5, 2026, to file 2 brand new felony charges based on that delayed report. Was that routine timing, or was it something else? Nobody has publicly answered that question. And then there's the third factor, and this one isn't a person, it's the empire itself. Robert Cosby Jr. was the sole heir, the only child, the one person who would eventually inherit Faith Temple Pentecostal Church and everything connected to it. And that empire was already under siege. Just 8 weeks before Robert died, TLC aired a 3-part docuseries called The Cult of the Real Housewife, featuring former church members alleging financial exploitation, hidden cameras in the church, spiritual manipulation, and even physical punishment of children through a youth program run by Robert Sr. himself. Mary denied all of it, but the headlines were stacking up, and Robert's escalating arrests, domestic violence charges, and public breakdowns were pouring gasoline on a fire that was already burning out of control. So the question that hangs in the air is this: was Robert Cosby Jr. an heir the empire could rally behind, or had he become the single biggest liability to everything his parents spent 3 decades building?
I don't know, just life is like just chicken on season. But I don't know, when I get high, it's like I hadn't season. I just turned 16. At first I was like, I'm gonna just stick to natural stuff. Okay. And then I went to a party and someone gave me a Xanax. And then I was like, oh, I like this, and I started buying it. Then I like started doing Xanax. Because I really like Xanax, so I mix it with everything. Xanax and cocaine. You know, the regular 30 milligram.
That scene aired on November 27, 2024, and it changed everything. This wasn't scripted drama or a manufactured storyline. This was a mother finding out in real time that her son had been slowly destroying himself since he was a teenager. Mixing Xanax with everything from acid to cocaine, popping 10 OxyContin pills at once and feeling nothing, and sitting across from her carrying the weight of suicidal thoughts he had never told anyone about. The response was massive. Viewers who had made fun of Mary Cosby for years suddenly had tears in their eyes. Rihanna reached out to the family twice, including a personal Christmas message. Robert checked himself into a 30-day rehabilitation program and completed it. Mary went on Watch What Happens Live in December 2024 and told Andy Cohen, beaming with pride, that her son came out a new person. But the recovery didn't hold. When cameras came back for season 6, Robert admitted on camera that he had relapsed. He told Mary he was seeking stimulation from unhealthy sources. When she pressed him, the answer was drugs. Testing later revealed cocaine, fentanyl, and marijuana in his system. And the presence of fentanyl in that test is something that takes on a completely different weight when you know that just over a year later, Robert would be found dead after a suspected opioid overdose. If this story is hitting you as hard as it hit me, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Drop your theories in the comments. And subscribe if you haven't already, because this is far from over. That was Mary Cosby on national television in January of 2026, barely a month before she would face the exact nightmare she had been praying against. Robert walked out of Salt Lake County Metro Jail on February 3, 2026. His attorney told reporters that the 2 months behind bars had given him the chance to sober up and think clearly, that he was looking forward to positive changes. But think about what was waiting for him on the outside. His divorce had been finalized on January 14th while he was still locked up. He wasn't even there for the hearing. Alexiana had a permanent no-contact order, meaning if he even tried to reach her, he was going right back to a cell. And the very next day after his release, February 5th, prosecutors hit him with 2 brand new felony charges, aggravated assault and assault, tied to Alexiana's delayed report about the May 2024 attack. On February 7th, 3 days after his release, Mary posted what would end up being the last photo she ever shared of her son, Robert, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "God first love you all my beautiful son. I love him small." 16 days after that photo was taken, at approximately 6:14 in the evening on February 23, 2026, a 911 call came in from that gated community near Ensign Peak. When emergency crews arrived at Mary Cosby's home, Robert Clinton Cosby Jr. was pronounced dead at the scene. Somebody had already given him a dose of Narcan before the paramedics got there. It wasn't enough. As of right now, the Salt Lake City Police Department has not officially determined how Robert Cosby Jr. died. They haven't confirmed foul play, but they haven't ruled it out either. The medical examiner's investigation is still ongoing, and Bravo has paused production on Season 7 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City indefinitely. But there are questions that no toxicology report is going to answer on its own, and I think they deserve to be asked out loud. Who was with Robert when he collapsed? Somebody was inside that house. Somebody placed that 911 call. Somebody had the presence of mind to administer Narcan before first responders arrived. Who was that person and what exactly did they see? How did a man who had been sober for 2 months in jail, who was wearing a court-ordered ankle monitor, who was supposed to be under probation supervision and enrolled in substance abuse treatment, how did that man get his hands on what appears to have been a fatal dose of opioids within 19 days of walking free? Somebody put those drugs within his reach. Whether that was a dealer, a friend, or someone with darker intentions is something investigators should be looking at very hard. And then there's the question of who benefits. Robert was the sole heir to everything his parents built. He was also, by the time of his death, the single greatest source of negative publicity the family had ever faced. His arrests, his domestic violence charges, his relapse, and his increasingly chaotic behavior were generating headline after headline, each one more damaging than the last. I'm not saying that proves anything, but I am saying it deserves scrutiny. Mary Cosby told the world through tears that her beloved son had been called home to the Lord. Andy Cohen called it every parent's worst nightmare. And during that season 6 reunion, filmed while Robert was still alive but behind bars, Mary said the one thing that now echoes louder than everything else: "I'd rather him be there than dead." Robert Clinton Cosby Jr. was 23 years old. He was somebody's son, somebody's ex-husband, and somebody's grandson. And everybody who knew him said he had a warmth and a humor that never quite made it through all the noise. So who killed Robert Cosby Jr.? Was it the drugs that consumed him since he was 16? Was it the system that locked him up and spit him back out with nothing? Was it the marriage that broke him? Was it the empire that shaped him? Was it the spotlight that stripped away any chance at a private recovery? Or was it something, or someone, that hasn't been uncovered yet? The medical examiner's report will eventually tell us how Robert Cosby Jr. died. It may never tell us why. If you watch this all the way through, you already understand why this story matters. When the toxicology results come back, when new information surfaces, we will be right here with the full breakdown. Subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss it. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this story, because the more people paying attention, the harder it becomes for the truth to stay buried. Drop your theories in the comments, and if you want a part 2, tell me. Because we will deliver.